My name is Matthias Burgi. I'm a DevOps engineer at La Mobilière.
Hello, my name is Fabian Hutzli, and I'm also a DevOps engineer at La Mobilière.
So we talked already 2 weeks ago about automating our build and deploy process with our Pontobello installer to standardize and streamline our deployments. The installer that we built is basically a Docker image containing all required tools and scripts to build and deploy SPFx solution. And so far, this actually worked great, and we had everything covered, and we were happily deploying away until Nello implemented the real-time news solution. So this solution now heavily depends on Azure resources for publishing and depublishing news, as well as for alerting users about new news articles. So, and our installer was lacking again. Thank you, Nello. We had to think about a way to include Azure resource deployment into this installer, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So we needed infrastructure as code tool for the deployment of the Azure resources. We decided to use Terraform, but biceps could also be implemented in the same fashion, I think. But just creating Azure resources is obviously not enough. We need something to tie all the different steps together. After provisioning SharePoint sites and lists, those site URLs, list IDs, and so on, they must be referenced in the logic app that we deploy. And then after deployment of the resources, for example, the URL of the socket web app, which is only known after provisioning, then is required for the build of the SPFx web part. So to orchestrate the complete deployment, we decided to use the Azure Developer CLI. As the name hints at, this is a command line interface tool for developers to manage Azure resources and services from the command prompt. It allows us to provision Azure resources, deploy the web app, and run all pre- and post-requisite scripts. So let's have a look how this looks in code. And afterwards, Fabian will show in a live demo how that really looks. Let me switch to the code. So I have the real-time news repository open. So we still have the installer mapped as a Git submodule into a .dev container folder. It contains basically, as I said, as a Docker file with all the required tools, as well as our scripts that we use to build and deploy the various artifacts. So that is the same as we had it also in the past, but now we also have this azure.yaml file, which is basically the control center for the Azure Developer CLI. There are basically 3 sections in here. We can configure hooks, so scripts that are being run before or after certain Azure Developer CLI tasks. In our case, we only use ACD up, so the up command. So we have a pre-up and a post-up hook defined, which will run, as indicated before or after this up command. Then we define the infrastructure provider, in our case Terraform, could also be biceps. And then we define also the services, which then need to be deployed after the infrastructure is created. So let's have a look what happens in those hooks. So in the pre-up script, first of all, what we do is we invoke the deploy sites and list script from our Pontobello installer. And this script then creates all the required sites and lists. So this is all configured in this SPO folder. We have the solution JSON where we actually define the sites which need to be created, the solutions that need to be deployed to the sites, different PNP templates that are applied to the site. So we have multiple sites in here. And then we have also a term store section where we define all the term groups and term sets that need to be created in order for the solution to work. So this script processes the solution JSON and creates all those SharePoint sites and lists and so on. And then all we do is actually define variables for the Azure Developer CLI. So the list that we created, the URL of the news page, and so on. And that's actually all that happens here. after the pre-op script has run, the infrastructure is being deployed. So here we have the Terraform code. Maybe have a quick look at the TFOR file. This is the definition for the Terraform variables. So what happens here is that all the variables that we exported in the Azure Developer CLI are now handed over to Terraform, where they're being used to create the resources with the correct parameters and names and so on. Maybe one special case is for the logic gap. So for every news page that we create, we need a separate logic gap, and therefore we have a small for each construct that actually loops through all the different sites defined in the solution JSON and creates as many logic gaps as you need. After all the resources are created, as said before, Azure Developer CLI then deploys the app service. So we reference the project from Nello here, and then that is automatically deployed. And it's time for the post-up script, which again reads some variables. So we need now to know the socket URL, for example, for the build of the web part. That is again exported as a variable to the Azure Developer CLI. And then we just trigger our build script, and afterwards the deploy script. So the solution is being built and it's being deployed to the tenant app catalog and also to the sites where it is needed. That's actually all the magic. Now I hand over to Fabian for the fun part to see how that really works in real time.
Thank you, Matthias. So due to limited time and also because a demo is always unpredictable, I recorded a video. I show you now shortly the solution JSON. We saw that from Matthias, so that's not something new here. We have 3 sites. We have site templates that will be applied to the site, and we have a term set as well. To start the installation, I use the dev container, which is part of the Montebello installer, and we start the dev container using the integration of VS Code. So we are starting now the dev container, and for authentication to SharePoint, we use the login selector of our Montebello installer. For the real-time news, we need some extra resources in Azure, as Matthias already mentioned. So we have to make sure that we are also authenticated to Azure as well. In this demo, I used the same login parameters from the Montebello installer. You see it here in the script above, and made sure that I have the appropriate rights to Azure. After authentication, I need to create a new environment for Azure Developer CLI. I use the acd-env new command. I call the environment same name like my tenant for this demo. And right after I created the new environment, we can start the installation process with acd up, and this will have a look to the azure.yaml file and run all the tasks that Matthias already mentioned. First, it runs the pre-op script, which is based on the script in Montebello install, which deployed the sites and lists. And I now let the installation run so we can see the output here. The process naturally takes a little bit longer, but I have to speed up for this video. So we see that we are now create new sites and apply the site templates to the sites. And that's the magic of the pre-op script. And after the pre-op task, the actual deployment of the Azure resources in the web app and the web app begins. Since I have only created a new environment name, we still need to choose the target subscription and the target location for the resources. This could also initially set as parameters with the acd-env command. But I used the selector for this demo here. Then the infra deployment with Terraform will be started. At the beginning, we see that the providers are initialized, and then it checks what needs to be made. As Terraform is a declarative approach, and the definition is compared with the target system, so we don't have any resources yet, and so the outputs you see is that we need 10 resources to be added. Then it starts the deployment of the resources to Azure. And then in the output again, we see that the 10 resources are applied to our Azure tenant. And we see also the app name and the resource group that is created. And we need this value to install the web app code to the web app resource. And after this deployment of the web app is completed, it will then start the post up task. Here we see the following environment variables. We need these parameters for the web part. So this allows us to connect the web parts to the socket app, to the relevant lists, and the term set for the news channel. And after that, our build and deploy script for the web part is started. This in turn is the standard script of our Puntobello installer. And then adding the web part to the app catalog completes this installation. And then we have a look at the environment variables again of the Azure Developer CLI. So we open up the .azure folder, which stores my environment variables of my environment, as you see here. And now we check if the sites are created as we expect. And we see that we are having a home site, the news English and the news German site. And when I open up the home site, we can see the web part. Yeah, I already prepared that in advance, so we don't have to waste any time here. And we see that we also have 2 news channels as well. And then we have a look at the provisioned Azure resources. We see a logic app here, or multiple logic apps here, and the associated API connection for SharePoint. We still need to provide an account here for this API connection, and we have to make sure that this account that we use for this connection have the appropriate right to write to the SharePoint site and to the list. Okay, and then to test the entire installation, I created a new news item on one of our news sites that we created a couple of moments ago. For this, I create the short text and the header image. As you've seen here, header image is coming. And then I have also set the news channel and published from date, which then set the publish date of this news post. Then I go back to the home site after I posted the news. Wait a couple of seconds for the banner that should appear now. And when I refresh the page, then we see the news page that I created a couple of seconds ago. And when I click on the news, I go to the news article. That's it. That's the demo. That's the integration of Puntobello installer in Azure Developer CLI. So, yeah, on the screen you find links to our blog post, GitHub repos, and our LinkedIn profiles. If you like to stay in touch with us, these are the best ways to reach us. The last slide, please. I'm not sharing the slides. Okay. Thank you all. We truly appreciate the opportunity to share our work. And if you have any question, reach us at the links that we post.